Welcome to this full moon in Leo. Now, Leo is a fire sign. It's the sign of the heart. And it's not just about emotion, because you think about Leo the lion, there's that idea of courage. This is the courage to actually step forward and be seen, the courage to act from, the heart-led truth, and the courage to lead from the inside out into the world. And yet Leo also asks for us to give something deeper than just confidence or visibility, or to trust in that. It asks whether the life we're trying to live and the direction that we're trying to lead is actually supported by our whole being. Now, this full moon actually brings in some wisdom from the I Ching, from human design, because at this point in time, the moon is in gate 7 or hexagram 7, the army. So at this time of the full moon, the moon is actually activating gate 7. Which in human design is called the gate of leadership or the gate of direction. And gate 7 is about leadership, but it's not about trying to have dominating power over others. It's about how you guide others. And also about setting direction that others are willing to follow. But it was also about setting direction that the parts of ourselves are willing to follow. So this is gate 7, line 1 is the energy that we're looking at, which means that it's about going deep into what is the true foundation of my leadership. Is this leadership itself internally sound within me? All right, so Leo brings in the heart and the courage, and gate 7 brings in this direction energy, and line 1 brings this foundational energy that is based on integrity. So when we bring them together, the real question of this full moon is, am I leading myself and others from a place of my heart, from a place of my integrity, and am I leading them in a direction that is feeling correct for all parts of myself, so that those people feel safe within the energy? Let's look a little bit closer at hexagram 7. This is the underlying energy of gate 7. So the I Ching uses the words the army, and it talks about the fact that in those ancient times, the army was not like a standing army. There wasn't an army that was always going. People were not trained to be professional soldiers. The army was created by calling together essentially the workers, the peasants, the farmers. And the idea in the I Ching is about how do you draw those people in to create an army that will fulfill what it's there for without falling apart. Because if it falls apart, then it doesn't matter how good, the forward-facing general or whatever is, the whole thing is just going to collapse. So it's almost this idea of the army can only move as well as the weakest part of that army. And for each part to move forward willingly, there needs to be trust. There needs to be this sense that the purpose for the army is supported by all of the parts. So when there is no trust, or the trust breaks down, then the movement of the army itself slows down. The army needs all of its parts to be moving in a very powerful forward momentum. Confusion can come in because some people are just not doing what they're meant to be doing. This can lead to all kinds of things. So think about this as what can happen within us. We are the leaders of ourselves, but we've also got all the different parts within ourselves that can fight against the direction. There can be, parts of us that don't trust what we're actually choosing to do. So this trust can break down within us, and our own movement as entrepreneurs, as leaders in our business actually slows down as well. And it can feel very confusing. It can feel draining, like our energy is just leaking out. So this can also look to us as procrastination, but maybe that's not the full story. There can be these feelings of resistance, which can, come through as a kind of self-sabotage. So this is kind of the energy behind Hexagram 7. It's saying you need to make sure that all parts of yourself are in alignment and in agreement with a direction that you're choosing. And I would go so far as to say that if you are not aligning that direction with who you truly are, then you're going to have a lot of resistance and a lot of things that seem like procrastination or self-sabotage. These things shouldn't be seen as us failing. How often do we go into a spiral of self-blame? Oh, I'm just always procrastinating. Or, oh, there we go again. I've just sabotaged the whole thing. Those kinds of things. If we can reframe that and say, what is this situation and this reaction actually showing us? What feedback is it giving us? So let's go a little bit further now into Leo. So this is where I've got my MC, but I don't have a lot of Leo energy in my chart. So it's always interesting to me when we get to a time when, say, the sun is in Leo or the moon is in Leo or there's some transits or whatever happening. So, Leo has this amazing confidence, creativity, this ability to stand in the spotlight because it's ruled by the sun. But underneath all of that, I suppose, lion bravado, there is this deeply vulnerable part of the Leo because it is meant to be led by the heart. As I said before, it's a fire sign. So, that's the heart of the matter. What's, burning up and leading us ahead. And, if we look at this idea of the heart carrying the vulnerability, at this point in time with the full moon, we may actually find, this light shining brightly on parts of ourselves that are not wanting to come along on the journey, the gate 7 energy, and we might fall into the position, the trap even, of labeling these parts of ourselves in a way that becomes quite negative. So, resistance is information, but we can say, oh, I'm just obviously lazy or, hopeless or whatever. There's all kinds of stories that we tell ourselves when we're not doing what we think we should be doing. There's often something happening underneath this. So this is about the Leo vulnerability, where we need to think about why might Leo be resisting things? This is what I have to examine with Leo as my MC. What's the vulnerability here? Am I protecting my heart? Am I protecting myself from disappointment? Am I protecting myself from rejection? Whatever. The full moon in Leo is going to shine a light and give us a chance to see what parts of ourselves are not feeling aligned and wanting to go along on the journey. And this is information that we can turn into a level of awareness. So I'm going to actually invite you to do that now. We're going to tune into your inner awareness. And just you take a breath, close your eyes down if that feels correct for you. And just really feel into, your inner world. And I want you just to tell yourself there is nothing that needs to change. There is nothing that needs to be fixed. I am just listening to all of the parts of myself. What part or parts of me is not going where I want to lead? And just really feel into that. Take some nice breathing. And just allow your intuition to reveal to you. And it may be more than just a part. Sense into what that is. And you may find it useful to journal on what this is. So that the key question at this point in time, while the moon is full, is what part of me or parts of me is not wanting to go where I say I want to lead. So try and give that a name. So it could be a part of me that feels tired or exhausted, a part of me that is cautious or maybe afraid, a part of me that really resists being seen, a part that maybe doesn't believe any longer in the direction they're going. So this is parts of you giving you honest feedback. And actually naming them can change the perspective. So Leo teaches us that leadership without our heart involved basically becomes like a tyranny, a tyranny where one part is having the ultimate say, and that is not helping you to become true business leader, even if that's just leading within your own business itself. When there is this part of you that just wants to overwhelm the rest. So this is where self-sabotage may be something that appears. And that's not a weakness. It's just parts of yourself going, going in this direction is problematic for some reason. And because we're looking at the idea of integrity, what integrity is lacking? Listen to yourself. This is the place that leadership starts. Even if it's just leading ourselves, we need to listen to ourselves as well. Okay, so if you have had some feedback and you have some awareness, we're now going to just do a very gentle little releasing process. And obviously, if you haven't identified that yet, just pause the video, rewatch the video, whatever you need to do, because this whole process really will help you to move forward in a more positive way for the rest of the month. So I want you just to put your hand on your heart or in some other place if that feels more natural to you. So you choose, but for me, the heart always feels correct. And then we're going to say, under this full moon, I release. Not desire, not ambition. I release false courage. The kind that pushes ahead instead of pausing and listening. The kind that just performs instead of feeling deeply, the kind that is not truly aligned. And then, this is a really powerful statement. You say, I release the need to force myself to follow a direction that my heart no longer trusts. I release the need to force myself to follow a direction that parts of me no longer see the integrity. I release leadership that demands loyalty without my internal consent. I release the belief that bravery means turning off the ability to hear my inner truth. Okay, now let's go back to the heart. Leo reminds us that leadership belongs and begins from the heart. It is heart-led leadership. Ask yourself, what would it look like to lead myself with courage and compassion? Not worrying about productivity, not performance, not visibility, but true integrity. True integrity requires both courage and compassion. So for entrepreneurs, leadership often looks out externally for decisions, for offers, for visibility, for strategy. We often trust an authority outside of ourselves. None of that actually holds your inner army in a place of trust, in a place of your personal integrity and your personal alignment. So this full moon is not saying, act like the big brave Leo and just push on forward through things. It's asking you to go into that deeper level of courage where you really examine the basis of your leadership and brings that back into coherence. So there are some really important things to consider under this Leo full moon. Okay. May your leadership be guided by your heart. May your inner army trust your direction again. And may the path ahead of you be one in which all parts of you are willing to walk. Happy full moon in Leo.